What if I told you that today's court ruling on Edgar Lungu isn't just another legal matter, but a moment that could reshape Zambia's political future? Inside the courtroom, shocking arguments have surfaced. Some say they reveal hidden truths about Lungu's past, his power, and the legal battles surrounding his family. But here's the twist. While the ruling will be read today, what's already been said in court is shaking Zambia to its core. What secrets are being exposed? And what does this mean for HH, the Lungu family, and the entire nation? Stay tuned, because the truth you're about to hear will leave you speechless. Breaking news. Today, Zambia awaits a crucial court ruling in the case of former President Edgar Lungu. But before the judgment is delivered, shocking arguments have already been laid out in court, exposing hidden truths that could change everything. In this exclusive breakdown, we uncover the explosive arguments made in court, what the ruling could mean for Edgar Lungu and his family, the hidden truth behind Zambia's most controversial case, how this battle impacts President Hakainde Hichilema's political future. This is more than just a ruling, it's a turning point for Zambia. The courtroom awakens, dawn breaks over Lusaka. The streets, usually alive with the rhythm of daily life, feel different today. Outside the courthouse, the air is thick with anticipation. Crowds have gathered, some hopeful, some fearful, all waiting for a verdict that could redefine Zambia's political landscape. Today, the name on everyone's lips is Edgar Lungu. Once a president, now a man facing the full weight of a legal system. His allies call the case a witch hunt, a political trap designed to erase his legacy. His critics say this is justice long overdue. But no matter the perspective, everyone agrees, this is no ordinary trial. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere is charged. Judges, lawyers, journalists, each step, each whisper feels amplified in the silence. The benches creak under the weight of expectation, and the walls seem to echo with the memory of past trials that shaped Zambia's history. For months, speculation has swirled. What exactly would be revealed in court? Who would testify? And most importantly, what secrets might finally come into the light? Some whisper of hidden transactions. Others hint at documents that never should have seen the inside of a courtroom. A few even suggest that foreign hands, unseen but powerful, are influencing the process. The tension is not just about guilt or innocence. It is about the future. Because in Zambia, trials are never just legal battles. They are political earthquakes. A single ruling can shift alliances, alter careers, and decide the fate of entire families. And today, that earthquake is about to hit with full force. As the judge takes a seat, silence falls. Every eye fixes on the bench. Every ear strains for the first words. For the nation, this is the moment, a reckoning that has been years in the making. The courtroom has awakened. And with it, Zambia prepares for a truth that may shock everyone watching. The charges no one expected when Edgar Lungu stepped down from State House. Many believed his story had ended. A former president fading quietly into retirement, a man remembered for both his power and his controversies. But inside Zambia's courts, a new chapter was just beginning, one that few had predicted. The charges came suddenly. For weeks, whispers had swirled through political circles. Investigations were underway. Evidence was being collected. Allies were being questioned. Yet when the indictment was finally read, the details left the courtroom stunned. These were not the accusations many had anticipated. Instead of focusing solely on corruption, the charges cut deeper into networks of influence, alleged secret deals, and decisions made behind closed doors during his presidency. Documents presented hinted at money trails crossing borders, hidden agreements with business elites, and policies that, according to prosecutors, were never designed to serve the people but to protect power. For supporters of Lungu, this was proof of a political witch hunt. They argued the state had gone fishing, digging up anything and everything to tarnish a man who still carried weight in Zambia's political landscape. If they can do this to a former president, one loyalist said outside the courthouse, they can do it to anyone. But for critics, the charges were long overdue. They saw them as validation of years of suspicion, the whispered conversations, the unexplained wealth, the unanswered questions about decisions made in office. To them, this wasn't about politics. It was about accountability. The courtroom itself felt like a stage. On one side, state prosecutors spoke with precision, reading line after line from thick files. On the other, Lungu's defense team prepared to strike back, arguing that the evidence was flimsy, the accusations exaggerated, the process itself tainted. But beyond the legal arguments, one question echoed louder than all others. Why now? Why, years after leaving power, were these charges finally surfacing? Was this truly justice catching up, or a carefully timed political strategy? As the day ended, the charges hung over the nation like a storm cloud. Shocking, uncertain, impossible to ignore. And for Edgar Lungu, the trial was no longer about the past. It was about survival. Lawyers in the shadows in any courtroom drama, lawyers are the visible warriors, arguing, objecting, and cross-examining. But in Edgar Lungu's case, the real battles seem to take place outside the courtroom, in the shadows where the public never looks. From the very first hearing, it was clear this was no ordinary legal team. Lungu's defense was stacked with some of Zambia's sharpest legal minds, men and women known for their ability to bend arguments, dismantle evidence, and delay proceedings until the pressure broke. Their strategy was precise: protect Lungu at all costs and expose the trial as nothing more than a political witch hunt. But behind them, whispers told a different story. Who was really paying the bills? Some sources claimed that wealthy business figures with old ties to the Lungu administration were quietly bankrolling the defense. Others suggested foreign allies, desperate to keep certain truths from emerging, had ensured the defense was well armed. On the other side stood the state prosecutors, outwardly calm, armed with thick files but under immense pressure. Every move they made was scrutinized, every argument dissected. Were they truly pursuing justice, or were they puppets of political masters pulling strings behind closed doors? What made the drama even more gripping were the late-night meetings. Journalists spotted defense lawyers entering private residences under the cover of darkness. Rumors spread of sealed envelopes, unrecorded negotiations, and promises exchanged outside the walls of justice. None of it confirmed, yet all of it believable in a trial of this scale. One observer described it like this: the courtroom is just a stage. The real trial happens in the shadows, where the deals are struck and the truth is buried. For the Zambian people, this raised chilling questions. Was justice truly being served? Or was this simply another performance where lawyers, politicians, and hidden financiers acted out their parts while the truth slipped further away? As the hearings continued, one thing became clear. This trial was about more than legal arguments. It was about power. And in Zambia, power rarely plays by the rules of the courtroom. The evidence that vanished every trial depends on evidence. Documents, witnesses, bank records, the pieces of a puzzle that prove guilt or establish innocence. But in Edgar Lungu's case, the puzzle seemed to arrive with missing pieces. And those missing pieces told their own story. From the very start, prosecutors hinted they had explosive files, secret contracts, money transfers, and testimonies that could shake the courtroom. But when the hearings began, key documents were suddenly absent. Some files were declared misplaced, others not yet available. In one shocking moment, a witness was called, only for the defense to reveal that the individual had mysteriously left the country the night before. Coincidence? Or something much darker? For critics, this was proof that the system was rigged. Powerful hands, they argued, were deliberately erasing evidence to protect Lungu and his allies. But others suggested a different theory, that the state itself was holding back certain files, choosing carefully what to reveal and what to bury, for fear that the truth would damage not just Lungu, but the institutions that enabled him. Then came the rumors. A briefcase of documents lost in transit. A laptop reportedly wiped clean before investigators could seize it. Testimonies that were sworn in private but never reached the courtroom floor. Each story added fuel to the fire, deepening the suspicion that the truth was being carefully managed. Journalists outside the courthouse began calling it the trial of disappearing evidence. And for ordinary Zambians, the question was simple. If the truth exists, why is it so hard to bring into the light? One legal analyst summed it up bluntly: when evidence disappears, it means someone is afraid of what it would reveal. But perhaps the most dangerous consequence was not what vanished, but what remained. The scraps of evidence that did make it into the courtroom hinted at a much larger web of secrets. Enough to suggest corruption, but never enough to prove it fully. And so the nation was left in limbo. Was justice being served? Or was Zambia witnessing yet another performance where the real evidence was hidden in the shadows? Esther's silence in Zambia's political storms, one voice has often stood out, calm yet commanding, careful yet powerful. Esther Lungu, former First Lady, has always been more than just a supporting figure. To many, she is the strategist, the shield, the true anchor of the Lungu household. But in the midst of Edgar Lungu's courtroom battle, her silence has become deafening. From the first day of the trial, cameras searched for her face. Supporters expected fiery statements, strong words of defiance, perhaps even public rallies in defense of her husband. Instead, nothing. No interviews, no press conferences, not even a carefully worded social media post. Only silence. For some, this was strategy. By staying quiet, Esther avoids adding fuel to the fire. Her silence keeps the family above the noise, suggesting dignity rather than desperation. A quiet statement that says, "We will not be dragged into a circus." But for others, her silence was unsettling. Was she distancing herself? Did she know something that the public didn't? Whispers spread quickly that private disagreements had emerged within the family, that Esther was counseling caution while others pushed for confrontation. And then came the most chilling theory, that her silence was not chosen, but imposed. Some insiders hinted that private warnings had been delivered, stay quiet, or face consequences. If true, then Esther's silence was less a shield and more a signal of how tightly controlled this trial had become. Zambians debated her absence endlessly. In the markets, people asked why the once vocal First Lady no longer spoke. In churches, her silence was seen as almost prophetic, a sign that darker truths were still to come. A political commentator captured it perfectly. When Esther Lungu speaks, people listen. But when she doesn't, people listen even more. Her silence has become a riddle. A puzzle piece in a case already clouded by missing evidence, vanishing witnesses, and whispered betrayals. And sooner or later, that silence will break. The question is, when it does, whose truth will it serve? Hidden hands in the gallery, every courtroom has two stages. The first is obvious, the lawyers, the judges, the witnesses, all battling under the glare of cameras and flashing lights. But the second stage is more discreet, quieter, hidden in the shadows, the gallery. And in Edgar Lungu's trial, the gallery has become just as important as the case itself. Reporters noticed it first. Each day, the same faces appeared, not sitting in the front with the press or the family, but tucked away in corners, whispering, watching. Some were business tycoons with deep ties to past governments. Others were foreign diplomats, their suits blending into the background, but their presence impossible to ignore. Then came the body language. A nod exchanged between a lawyer and a figure in the gallery. A folded note passed discreetly. Eyes that seemed to follow every argument, as if measuring the temperature of the court. Who were these people and why were they there? Some claimed they were there to intimidate. Others believed they were the real power brokers, the ones who would decide how far this trial was allowed to go. One journalist described it as a play within a play, with the real script unfolding off stage. Whispers grew louder when it was revealed that certain witnesses were seen speaking privately with gallery figures before and after their testimony. And more than once, arguments that should have been buried suddenly surfaced in court, as if someone was feeding information from the shadows. For many Zambians, the sight of these hidden hands confirmed their worst fears, that this was not just a trial of one man, but a battle of invisible networks. Networks that stretched far beyond Lusaka, into Johannesburg, London, even Washington. Inside the gallery, silence ruled. But outside, the noise grew louder. Who really controlled this trial? Was the verdict already written? As one commentator put it, the lawyers may argue, the judges may rule. But in that gallery, history itself is being rewritten. The judge's dilemma in every high-profile case, the judge becomes more than a legal authority, they become a symbol. A symbol of fairness, of justice, of the state itself. But in Edgar Lungu's trial, that symbol is cracking under the weight of impossible choices. From the very beginning, Judge Mwansa, named fictional for narration, faced a storm. On one side, supporters of Lungu demanded loyalty to a former head of state. On the other, government officials quietly pressed for a decisive ruling that would reinforce the new order. Each judgment, each pause, even each expression on the judge's face was dissected by both camps. Court insiders whispered of late-night phone calls, anonymous letters delivered to chambers, private dinners where advice was generously offered. Everyone wanted something from the judge, but no one wanted to be seen asking for it. And then came the deeper fear, personal risk. To rule too harshly could invite accusations of bias. To rule too softly could mean accusations of betrayal. Either way, the judge's career, even their safety, hung in the balance. One legal scholar described the situation as a chess game with no safe moves. The judge is the king, the most protected piece on the board. But here, the king is also the most vulnerable. In court, the judge's tone was steady, measured, professional. But those who observed closely noticed hesitation, subtle delays before ruling on objections, a tightening of the jaw during heated exchanges. It was as though the judge was calculating not just the law, but the politics behind every word. For the public, this dilemma raised uncomfortable questions. Was justice truly blind, or had the scales already been tipped? Could any judge, no matter how skilled, deliver a verdict that would satisfy both the law and the nation's divided heart? As one commentator put it, the verdict may be written in law books, but the real judgment will be written in history. The nation waited, the gavel hovered, and the dilemma deepened. The verdict no one expected courtrooms are built for anticipation. The wooden benches, the hushed whispers, the echo of footsteps, all designed to heighten the drama of justice. But nothing could have prepared Zambia for what happened when the verdict in Edgar Lungu's case was finally delivered. The nation held its breath. Radios buzzed in crowded markets. Television screens flickered in dimly lit bars. Social media froze as millions waited for a single word from the bench. Guilty or not guilty, that was all people expected. But what they got was something far more complex. Instead of clarity, the judgment delivered contradictions. On one hand, the court acknowledged serious irregularities in Lungu's past dealings. On the other, it ruled that certain charges lacked admissible evidence. Supporters cheered, believing this meant victory. Opponents shouted betrayal, claiming the case had been sabotaged. And then came the real shock. Hidden within the pages of the ruling was a reference to sealed evidence, documents too sensitive to be made public, locked away for reasons of national security. The very mention of it set Zambia on fire. What secrets were so explosive that even the court could not reveal them? The streets erupted. In Lusaka, supporters marched, waving Lungu's image like a banner of triumph. Across town, critics called for resignations, demanding to know who had buried the truth. The country was no longer divided into winners and losers. It was divided into believers and skeptics. For Esther Lungu, the family, and their allies, the verdict was bittersweet. They had avoided the worst outcome, but the shadow of suspicion still lingered. For the government, it was equally uneasy. The case had not closed the chapter, but instead opened a dozen new ones. One political analyst summarized it best: this was not a verdict. It was a warning shot. And what it warns us of, we may not be ready to hear. The trial was over, but the mystery had only just begun.